the voice of truth, the official radio station of the Church of Christ or Iglesia ni Cristo.
Don't underestimate
the power
of a single
conversation.
It could change your whole life.
INCRadio Chatline.
conversations that matter.
This is what I ask. Let me always dwell in the temple of the Lord till I leave.
Hello, everyone who's tuning into INCRadio Chatline. I am your host for today, Tony Rose Valenzuela, broadcasting from Troy, Michigan. And it's an interesting topic that we have for you today. And hopefully you get to stay with us throughout our broadcast and share your thoughts with us there in the comment section, even if you're not watching this live. I'm not by myself. I do have my friends with me. You might be able to see them right now, or unless it's in spotlight view, but I don't know who wants to go first. But whoever wants to, just say hello.
So ladies first, I guess.
Yes.
Hi, Arnie here in Fort Worth again. Sorry, you guys are stuck with me for a bit.
Sorry,
I'll go next because I'm also from Fort Worth. Nathan Russell, formerly from the live chat.
Formerly from the live chat.
Now in the live chat. The panel.
Yeah, the real chat.
The real chat. Hello everyone. Also, I'm John Volk, who's live here from Rockford, Illinois. You might not have seen me for the last 2 episodes, but I am back. I'm here. So hello everyone. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whichever part of the world you're tuning in with us today from.
Yes. And hopefully this is a relatable topic to everyone, because I think all of us at some point, you may have experienced this idea of wake-up calls, right? Not the one where your friend will call you to wake you up in the morning because you can't wake up yourself. Sometimes that's sweet. But wake-up calls in the sense where, we encounter these kind of moments that catch us off guard a lot of the time, that cause us to possibly pivot or change, our trajectory of life, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, just thinking about wake up call, how has it made you feel? Or how have you seen others when they've experienced it? Like, what does it look like? What does it look like? And is it like a scary kind of thing? For me, I feel like the way that I would describe it is like when I'm driving and then suddenly someone brakes in front of me and I'm like, oh, and I get jolted. That's what it feels like for me.
For me, when I think of that, or how I've seen other people that dealt with it, I've seen where when they got that wake up call, it just changed their life for the better, because I think they started to realize the things that they were doing, and so now they realize, oh, I need to shape up. This is my wake up call to change and do better. In case anything happens, kind of a thing.
Yeah, there's that pause that happens where, like you said, you compared it to hitting the brakes. You can see that, in their physical expression. They're like, whoa, hold on a second. Where am I at? What's going on?
Mm-hmm.
And you think of like what could have happened, right? Like, like if you didn't hit your brakes in time, what could have happened? It could have gotten into like, an accident, could have gotten hurt, could have gotten like in trouble, right? Like you begin to think of like what could have happened, and then you're grateful that you're grateful for like the outcome, like, oh, like, okay, I'll be like, for today I'll be more careful driving. I'll be more alert driving, just to avoid another one of those.
By that metric, I get a wake up call every day driving through this city.
I mean, yeah, sometimes it does help though, right? Because I feel like I'm, when you just wake up in the morning, you're kind of like slogging around and you're like that. But then once you get that you're like, oh, or you notice that you're falling asleep, and then you start breathing like really fast. You're really, really awake at that time. At least
you look at the alarm, and then you realize, you woke up 30 minutes after your alarm.
Yeah, you're really awake. A literal wake up call.
Yeah.
We're speaking a little bit in metaphors, so I'm curious. Have you guys experienced one, or do you know someone who has experienced a wake up call?
Several. I
Um,
think several.
I have one that happened when I was younger. So, my aunt, she was my favorite aunt. It just so happened she was the only single one out of all my 12 aunts and uncles, and she was the type who would always, buy us new clothes, take us out to restaurants, things like that. She was like the cool aunt, and she was very ambitious, and her goal was to buy a Porsche because that was her favorite car, and she really wanted to buy it in cash. And so she worked really hard and everything, and she had saved up enough money to actually buy the car of her dreams. And before she did that, she she just like was coughing for the longest time, and she didn't like hospitals or anything like that. So finally we told her, you need to go get checked up and just see what's going on. And mind you, she's not a smoker or anything like that, but she got diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And so, like I said, she was working hard, she was doing everything. And when she got diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, she just realized, like, oh my gosh, all of this thing that I've been doing is like kind of wasted, because now what is she going to do with all this money? What is she going to do with a car if she doesn't make it and stuff like that? And so when she got sick, and I realized that, it didn't matter how hard she worked and everything, it really changed my perspective on life. Because with me, I was the whole American dream: go to college, get a good job, get a degree, have a career, and then worry about everything else later. But when that had happened to her, it really made me change my perspective, because, like I said, she had enough money to buy a Porsche cash, but then now it's like she wasted that effort, because, now even if she bought it, she didn't live long enough to be able to enjoy it. And so I got to the point where I said, you know what? I could be saving all this money. I could be working so hard. And then what's going to happen when I die? Then I didn't get to enjoy it. So I think that was my wake up call, to set priorities and see what's important and what it is I should work towards, and not all about the materialistic things. So that was my wake up call.
How old were you, Arnie?
I was early 20s. I was, like I said, I had finished college already, but I was on a career path where, it was all about going to work and saving money all the time. And so one of the things, because when that had happened, um, when my nephews would ask me for anything, now I'm like, okay, whatever you want, I'm gonna get. And my sisters would get mad at me. They're like, quit buying them stuff, quit doing stuff. And I was like, look, I could save up all this money, and then when I die, they're going to inherit my millions, right? I don't have millions, but they're going to inherit my I go, why can't I spoil them now and watch them enjoy the things that I worked hard for, Even if it's just to go get a meal outside because they don't want to eat at home, but just do something to make them happy, because then at least, you know what? I'm not, at least I know that, hey, I'm doing something to make them happy, instead of me dying and then they're going to have fun with all my money when I'm gone.
It's the now,
Uh,
right?
yeah. So, yeah.
It pulls you into the now, I feel like. Hey, what are your thoughts on this?
I was just thinking about how a wake up call for somebody else can still be a wake up call, for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Your family goes through something, and even though you're not the one experiencing that kind of shock, you're feeling, I guess, the secondhand effects would be the way to describe it.
Right.
And yeah, just how pivotal moments like that in someone's life can affect and ripple out to those that know you and are around you. It's just something to keep in mind. Like, when you make decisions in your own life, it does affect those who love and care about you.
Mm-hmm. Different stuff to consider.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think for her, because she was very devoted to her faith and everything. And when she had lung cancer, that really affected her breathing and everything. So then she wasn't able to sing like she used to, or perform and things like that. And I could see how that broke her heart. And so I think when we take things for granted, like, oh, it's okay, I don't have to sing today. I could do it tomorrow. I think that helped me see that you don't know what tomorrow brings. Because, like I said, you know, one day she was like the strongest person that I knew, and then the next thing you know, she was really weak and couldn't even like get out of bed. So that just makes you cherish what you have and not take things for granted, I guess.
Do you think it makes it more of a wake up call because you can kind of imagine yourself also in that position? Did you feel yourself like doing that when you?
I think I did, only because back then there was no law with like indoor smoking at the time, and so all her coworkers were smokers. Like I said, she was not a smoker at all, but the doctor said that it was from secondhand smoke, and the sad part was like all her coworkers got tested, and none of them had cancer, lung cancer at all. It was just her, and so like you said, she was the healthy one. She was the one doing everything right. Yet this could happen to her. So yeah, I was thinking, you never know. It could happen to anybody, not just those who are prone to sickness and things like that.
Hmm. Let's say even in like let's say you're driving, like accidents can happen even if you're completely attentive, you're paying attention to everything. Like you're paying attention, but someone could not be paying attention, right? And those things can happen, they can happen like really fast, and we never really know like when it can happen. It's like what was that thing someone told me? It's like everybody says it won't happen to me until it happens to them. Right? And I totally understand. I was the type of person to say, like it'll never happen to me. Like I'll just run across the street. I look both ways. I'll just run across the street. I won't get hit with a car. It'll never happen to me. I'm careful. I am careful. I look both ways, but it can happen. It can happen. It has happened to a lot of people. But yeah, that's just my thoughts on that.
I'm curious. Does everybody here play volleyball or used to play volleyball?
Once or twice.
Once, yes.
Not professional. Like,
Because like one thing I noticed, like as I get older, is like your body, just can't do certain things. And I got a wake up call like last year, like, oh, I can't jump anymore, or I can't swing at a ball anymore. Every time I swing at a ball, like my elbow hurts a lot, or my shoulder hurts a lot. And it was kind of like a wake up call for then. And I think a lot of people, as they get older, they can relate to that, especially when it comes to sports. Like, oh, I can no longer do this or that. And either like you got to rethink how you are going to approach training, or if you're still going to play, are you going to adjust your game, or are you going to be like, I guess I'm moving on to like reading books or something.
It's just like when you're getting old, where before any action you do, you're fine, and then now just the little things you're grunting, like, oh, trying to get up and you can't even get up.
I agree with that. Like,
I know you can't relate to that yet.
Kind
no,
of.
I have.
Sometimes I have moments. Believe it or not, Arnie, I have moments.
Isn't it like before for me, I can go all I can like be like active, go all day with just like 2 hours of sleep. Now like if I get only 4 hours of sleep, I I'm sleepy for the entire day. Like
Yeah.
I can't, like, it's this kind of sleep where I can't function. Like
Okay.
you can tell me, you can tell me a story, but I won't be able to retain any of that information. 'Cause
So I have to disagree with you there, because me, it does not matter how old I'm getting. Like last night, I only had 3 hours of sleep because I keep watching all these videos that are so interesting that I can't fall asleep. I'm running on 3 hours of sleep, but yet I'm great. That's the one thing that I could still do that when I was younger, I could still do now, is stay up late and still function the next day.
yeah, for me
How
it's
I function, but yeah.
yeah,
But everything else, no.
for me, I started realizing when, like, like when 3 or 4 hours of sleep wasn't enough anymore, and I was like, I still feel tired even after 3 or 4 hours. But
Mine is
it's
more about lying down. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen that meme where it's like, you're getting older when you can't just stay on one side. Like,
oh,
you have to be able to rotate yourself like a rotisserie chicken because if you're only on one
yeah,
side for too long, it starts to hurt. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's you right now.
that's how my back
But
feels.
that's true. That,
I
that
feel
is
like I gotta think
Yeah.
about the logistics of putting on my shoes in the morning. I'm like, all right, where am I gonna sit down? How am I gonna move my legs so I can put on this shoe? Especially because I hurt myself playing basketball, and I'm
Mm.
notorious for not going to the hospital or seeing a doctor. So like my knee's still kind of messed up.
Mm.
Just not young anymore.
Or you look for a staircase, or you can like put your like foot up to you can tie your shoes.
But is it always that obvious though? Like a wake
It's
up call? Do you
gradual.
think
Like
it's gradual, or do you think
like
it's
for me, the realization for me was like gradual. It's like there definitely was that moment where like I woke up like for work on like 3-4 hours of like sleep, and I just told myself I gotta sleep earlier because because yesterday I wasn't able to like focus like on like my job, and I feel like I kept like messing up because like like that feeling of like awake but also not awake, like you can't
like
tell if you're
autopilot?
awake or not.
Like
Well,
autopilot or not quite?
yeah, it was kind of like autopilot, like where I couldn't tell if I was awake or not because I'd have that I'd have those moments where I'll jolt up and I was like, wait, I was asleep. So like it was there was that moment where that happened, but like on hindsight, I kind of realized the gradual progression of like me not being able to stay awake for like for with just like a couple hours of sleep like I was able to do when I was in high school, when I was a teenager. It wasn't like that anymore.
Because I feel like those things you kind of just like notice in like the everyday. But for my wake up call, I feel like mine took a lot more effort to kind of realize that it was happening. Because for me, there was a it was I was just out of not just out of high school, probably like a year or a couple years out of high school, and there was someone who was interested in um, dating me, but I didn't, you know, pursue the relationship. We were basically friends that were kind of catching up again. But like he let me know that he was interested, and over time, I didn't, you know, we didn't get into an actual relationship, but he was just kind of there, like in my life, and he was getting to know like other people in my life too, and just other different aspects of my life, and I felt different, like not in a good way when I was around this person. But I didn't realize it until much later in the time that we were spending time together again. It was kind of like it took, I guess, I wouldn't say other people like mentioning stuff to me, but just self-reflecting and kind of evaluating what I wanted out of that, friendship with that person. Like, do I still want to continue this? Like, I understand that they like me, but I don't know if me changing who I am now is going to be worth this thing, because I feel like I'm losing like core parts
Your
of myself.
identity. Oh,
Not just not my identity, but just stuff that I value. Like I didn't want that to be um the thing that was like changing about me because this person was, because like what I noticed is that it wasn't changes that I was okay with. Does that make sense? Like, because you can change, right, for good reasons, but then I see you unmuted, Arnie.
did someone else see the change in you,
Yes,
and
and
did they bring it up to you?
it wasn't. They didn't bring it up in a way that it was like um that they were saying, oh, like you shouldn't be with them, but they were just kind of like, you seem kind of, distant. You seem kind of, detached from you were before. I think it was more out of like curiosity and concern. So I was kind of that moment kind of got me to reevaluate. And then once I started reevaluating, I was like, oh man, it's like, what am I doing? Like, and I went to reflect and look back, and I just saw that there were so many instances that, I would go, this is something that I would go to before, but now I don't go to it anymore as often as I would, or I wouldn't hang out with a lot of my friends that I was hanging out with before. And then, yeah, it was something that, it was the first time I had experienced like that kind of a wake up call where it was something that actually scared me, because it felt like, because I like to be a person of intention, like especially like as I've gotten older, and like for me, like in that moment, it felt like it was just that passive, like autopilot kind of thing, and I was like, oh, this something needs to change here. So
So,
yeah.
how did you go about making that change?
Well, I let the person know that, because I was real with myself, and I asked myself, like, do you actually like this person? Like, do you? Because I didn't want to lead them on, of course, And so when I told them, I was like, I don't think, this is going to go anywhere. And then not long after that, he was not around, anymore. So, God's plan, right? Always. But it just, it was one of those things that, it was the first time that, I mean, I had wake up calls like prior to that, like just thinking of, again, that idea of intention, like being self aware has always been really big with me. And I didn't like that kind of like, it felt like I wasn't paying attention almost. I was just kind of just going, as opposed to, actually like making decisions or actually being active in the moment. I mean, it's not really a heavy thing. Like, it's not super heavy, like, in if you actually like look at all the details of everything, but it was just kind of like, for me, when I look back at it now, I'm like, I laugh. It's kind of like,
And I think someone is sometimes people have to kind of help us with
yeah.
that wake up call, because sometimes we don't wake up, we just keep going and going and going, and until someone actually points it out or questions it. And I think that helps wake us up, you know yeah. And this could be things that they've seen before, but maybe they just weren't comfortable in sharing, or didn't want to hurt your feelings and stuff like that, so they kept it within them. And so, my friends are fortunate because I don't keep nothing to myself. I'm just straight out, dude, what's going on?
Hey, those relationship wake up calls, those can be brutal. Glad I don't have to live through like high school or my 20s again. Like, I look back and I'm like, I would not do that again. I like being old. I like having old man hobbies, and everything is just much more chill. But yeah, those were rough. But I do have my own stories about wake up calls. In about the mid 2010s, I was working at a job. It was just like basic data preparation work, and I just felt like, man, this is boring. I'm not doing anything with my life. I'm bored. I'm sick of this. And the wake up call that I got was this email saying like, "Do you want to be a helicopter pilot?" And I was like, "Yeah, I want to be a helicopter pilot." So I was like clicking around, looking at it because it was for the Army. I was like, "Oh, okay, trick me." No, I'm not going to join the Army. But then I thought about it further, and I was like, you know what? I want to do something that's like bigger, something that has meaning. And I was like, I should serve my country and join the military. And it set me on this path of like, all right, I need to do everything I can to do this. I want to make this happen. I believe in it and whatnot. And I went to the recruiter, and he's like, all right, cool. You got your college degree, this and that. You can go to officer school, but you're overweight, so you're gonna have to drop some weight. And I was like, I mean, I was playing a sport at the time, so I was like, but I'm in good health. I'm good. Like, but the way the military works, there's a number, and you got to reach that number. And so I was determined, and I would wake up at like 3 in the morning, and I would go to the gym before work, and I would work out. Not only that, I would work out fasted. So I would eat one meal a day. I was like, all right, if I'm going to drop weight in the amount of time, I'm going to calculate my calories. I was doing 1,200 calories a day for like a year, and waking up at like 3 in the morning and working out. So it would be like half an hour of running, half an hour of like working out. And then I got another wake up call. I lost my job. I got laid off. So in the process of me doing this, lost my job. I'm like, what am I going to do? And I was in Houston at the time. And Houston, its economy is very reliant on the oil industry. So no matter what else is going on, with the economy, if oil is not doing well, then Houston's not doing well. So a lot of people lost their jobs. So it was really hard to find a job because all of a sudden you got a lot of talent, flooded in Houston, also looking for work. So, but at least I had the plan of joining the military. And I was like, well, if I'm not working anymore, I can focus on that. So I did. I focused on that, was dropping weight really, really fast. And then I got another wake up call. A friend of mine in Fort Worth was like, "Hey, I see you're out of the job. I can hook you up with a job." And I was like, "Cool," but I still want to do this military thing. I'm still working out and everything. And I had a family already, so my wife and son, um, trying to figure out how are we going to make this work out. Where like my family's in Houston and I'd be working in Fort Worth. It's a very tough decision to make. So that's a wake up call for my family. Like, oh, all of a sudden I got to be going to another city to work. But since I couldn't find work for like a few months, I went ahead and pursued that. It was a great opportunity, would have really advanced my career. And at the same time, I could still do the military thing. I was working for a military contractor, so that kind of worked out. And so I didn't have a place to stay though. So like I was living out of my car for a good while there in Fort Worth, sometimes sleeping at like gas stations or rest areas. Maybe every now and then I'll get a hotel, but that adds up. And so, yeah, it was rough. And I would wake up still early in the morning, go to the gym, work out. I mean, all season of the year, it'd be 20 degrees out and I'd be outside running. And then I would go to work. And then I would actually drive 4 hours back home to Houston to see my family. So all that is going on. This happens for months, and then eventually I get a full-time position here in Fort Worth, and I like the city so much I moved my family up here. And still in that process of trying to join the military, I managed to get another job, and then I got the actual wake-up call that, all right, the officer candidate school for the Air Force, they're booked for the next 3 years. You're going to have to wait 3 years. And it's like, I had just been prepping, I think at that point, over a year and a half of, early morning workouts, starving myself and whatnot. And it was just, I put so much work into this, put myself through a lot to get to this moment. And then the wake up call was like, well, it's not happening, because after those 3 years would have passed, even if a spot would have been open, I think I would have been over the age limit to be able to join up anyways. And it's like, well, I don't want to put my family through another 3 years of this. So we just went ahead and settled down. Fortunately, everything worked out. Like, my career has been really good here in Fort Worth. But yeah, that was a wake up call that was like a year and a half in making. And it was probably the most intense part of my life that I dedicated towards that. No regrets though, because I did learn a lot about myself going through that.
Wow.
Yeah, I think because things happen for a reason. We have plans. We want to do whatever we want to do, but is that what's really set for us?
And I always had it like in the back of my mind, like, all right, this is something I want to pursue, but if it's not meant to be, I'll accept it. But since everything just kept moving forward, I was like, all right, I'll keep moving forward with this. But it was a pretty shocking wake up call to get that call finally and being like, yeah, it's not happening. But
Do you think if you were any younger that it would have been harder to accept? Or do you think you would have been able to accept it the same younger?
I can see that. Like when you're older, you're a little more mature, you're more realistic. Since I had a family too, it's like I also consider them, in the decisions I make. So I would consider it though kind of like a soft landing. It was still a shock, but it was a soft landing because I was in a better place, So I was like, all right, I'll take that and I'll move forward from here.
And it's good that you know how to move forward from there, because some people can just be stubborn where, okay, this is what I want, but even if it's not for me, I'm okay. Yeah, some people aren't okay. They're going to still try to insist on what they want
Right.
instead of actually listening to that wake up call, because I have seen that so many times where, no, this is what I want, even though all the signs are saying no, that's not for you. But no, this is what I want. So,
Any specific ones that you can share, Arnie?
um, I think like with your end, same thing, like when it comes to relationships where, you were with a person for so long and you already know it's not going to work out, but because you're just so comfortable and you don't want to have to go look for anybody else, then you're just like, no, it's going to work itself out. And, I wish I would have told myself, no, really, it's not going to work itself out. Just let it go already and move on. But you learn.
It's like hitting the equivalent of that is probably like hitting the snooze, right? Like, no, we're still okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Like who knows how many times I hit that snooze button. And then finally I just realized, okay, it doesn't really matter what I really want because it's not going to happen. So just let it go. But yeah, you learn from it, right?
Yeah. Well, hopefully. I mean, I'm trying to think of moments where I I resisted or that I didn't learn from it right away. Because sometimes with the wake up call, like what you said, you kind of have to have a mindfulness or self awareness to really be able to accept it, right?
Yeah. And like Nate, how long did it take you to wake up from it and actually accept that you're not going to the military?
I felt like it happened all of that day. Just like, all right, I got the news, but I'm in a better spot. So just, I mean, it's just kind of like coming up with new goals in life because everything was set towards going to the military. Sold my house and everything, and then we were just temporarily staying in an apartment. But it's like, all right, I guess we gotta now move in this new direction. And I feel like that's something I've always been really good at. Whether that's good or bad, that you can throw a situation at me and I'll accept it. And I'm like, all right, fine. And I'll move on from it. I'm not as stubborn to try to hold on. So maybe I don't hit the snooze button. It's like, all right, I'm waking up. It sucks, but I'm gonna move forward with today.
I think that's why we get along because I'm totally different. I am stubborn, like especially if this is something I really want, I am stubborn. Even though I say, oh, if this is really not for me, then help me accept it. Yeah, I don't mean it when I say that because this is what I want. And for me, it took me a long time to finally say, okay, maybe this isn't for me. And, sometimes you have regrets because it's like you wasted so much of your time focusing your energy on something that didn't end up working out where you could have been focusing, your energy on something else. And so, and that's why I think I'm vocal now when I see either my nephews, my cousins, or anybody who gets into a relationship where you just know it's not going to work out. I'm like, dude, just let it go. Somebody else better is going to come along because I've been there. I mean, you do not even know how long I like. Sure,
It's like
it's
watching
gonna
a
work.
car accident in slow motion.
Yeah, like in very, very, very slow motion because it was going on forever.
So all of the experiences that you guys have had in terms of like your wake up calls, do you now share that with, like what you just mentioned, Arnie, you share it with your nephews now, your other wake up calls, like whether it's relationship, whether it's whatever it may be, do you try to wake others up in that way?
I do only because I know how it affected me. It took me so long to realize, okay, stop being stubborn and just accept it. And like I said, I felt like, even though I learned from it, I felt like I was wasting my time where I could have used it for something better. And so I don't want them to go through that. I want them to, live their best life and do what's good for them and realize, hey, if it's really not good, just let it go because something better will come along, even though that's something you can't see right now. So I try. And I don't just do it just to do it, but like if they ask for advice, then I do share it with them. Or if I see them going the wrong path, then I will talk to them about it. And I want them to hear like my experiences because I think that's better than like their parents yelling and screaming at them saying, don't do this, don't do that, because I don't think they really get anything out of there. But when they realize how it affects people's lives, I think that helps a little bit more.
So talking it out, right? Being able
Yeah.
to talk it out is one of the things that kind of helps because I'm thinking of what you mentioned earlier, just that idea of like, let's say you get the wake up call, right? And then you could have potentially two outcomes, right? You could have one outcome where you do change for the better, or you could get worse, right?
Be
After
stubborn.
having it.
Mhm.
Yeah. And just,
Yeah.
What you said there like made me think of like one of my wake up calls to see. This is kind of the reason now why for me like just in terms of like financially like money, if I have it and I know that I can use it to make someone happy, like I would use it to make someone happy. Because this is what happened. Happened like when I was like, like when you get like money on like New Year's, like your from your like your grandparents, your uncles, your aunts, like they'd give you money on like New Year's. Uh, like I think I'd saved up like quite a bit, and well, I was asleep. This happened like in the morning. And while I was asleep, my mom, because I don't know why I always left it out. I just left it out there. Like my mom borrowed like I think she borrowed like 100 peso like bill to buy bread for us, for all of us. And when I woke up, I didn't like I was like, wait, where's my 100 peso bill? Like, why did you like? And I went to my mom. I was like, why did you use my money like, because she told me that she used it. And she's like, why did you use my money? Why didn't you use your own money? Like, yeah, because I was 10, I was 10 years old. I was that kid. I was like, why didn't you use my money? And um, she kind of got mad, but was also like apologizing, like in a way for using it. And I just remember like feeling like really bad afterwards, or I was like, what is wrong with you? Like she always, like she always cooks food for us. She always buys food for us. She took care of me. Like I was having that conversation with myself. Like she took care of you. Like what are you doing? Like why did you say that?
I like how
say that
she
to her?
made you
Yeah.
feel bad for taking your money.
No, it's like this is the thing. She didn't do that to me. She didn't say things that made me feel guilty. It was like the afterwards, like after she apologized, and I was, like after the conversation, like where I had that sort of like internal conversation, was like, what is wrong with you?
That was her mind trick on you, though. She got you.
Yeah.
'Cause I know, like as a parent, you know your kid.
Yeah, I was like, well, I just had that when it was like I felt like really ashamed for like the way I reacted to, because like it's 100 pesos. So sure, 100 pesos is like a lot for a kid, but like compared it to like everything like my parents did for me, like growing up, like 100 peso bill is not gonna cover it. And she brought, like it's not like she bought the bread for them. She bought it for like all of us, like the entire family, me included. And she was
And
planning to return it. She was planning to return it as well. It's just that it's just more convenient because it was already on the table. Like she didn't have to like look for her purse anymore. It was just on the table. It was just like, okay, I'm gonna use it now. I'm just gonna return it later. So it, like it was, sort of that realization that I had where I think from then on I just started seeing like money as just it's just an object,
Mhm.
it's
but
made
you know
something
that's
else. Yeah. Oh, what was
that's a testament to how your parents raised you without them even giving you the guilt trip that you came to that realization when you were so young. That's a testament to how they raised you to be that type of a person. You know what I mean?
because like I've seen that in them where even if we're sort of like tight on like budget, if they see someone who's like struggling financially, someone they know, even someone who they don't know as well, like even just an acquaintance, and they know that they're struggling, like even at the same level as us, if they have something to give to share, like they would. And I think that's sort of like the lesson that wake up call taught me as well to, like, where I started looking at money. It's just money. You're gonna earn, like, you're gonna earn money. Like, you're someone's, like, being as a kid, I didn't have a job, but someone's gonna give you money. Like, when your like your grandparents, when they see you, they give you money. Like, it's something that just comes and goes. Like, it's not good to just it wasn't good for me to just sit on it and just admire it. And that's when it became for me, like, if I can use it to make someone happy, like, the first time I used my money to, like, to buy, like, one of my mom's favorite snacks, and then, like, when I came home, like, I gave it to her, and she was like really happy. She gave me a hug. She was like, "Thank you," and, like, that kind of feeling that that gave me, it's like, like that. Like, yeah, like, that the money I spent on that, I, not even thinking about it. It was just like I was able to do something that made, like, my mom happy. And yeah, like, for me, like, now, if I have something to give, like, I'd give, you know. So for me, that's, like, sort of like my wake up. It's not as thankfully it's not as intense as, like, what I've heard from you
I
guys.
I think that's still it's still valid though, right? Because like to Arnie's point, even as a child, I don't know that many children can come to that, kind of thinking right away. Just how old were you, AJ, when that happened?
10, I think 10, 11, because I was in grade school, from what I remember.
Yeah, it always just depends, especially just thinking of that dialogue that you were mentioning. Like they took care of you, like, they love you so much. Like I'm just imagining you as like 10-year-old EJ. I don't know a
Like,
lot of
I
10 year
literally
olds.
had that moment where I had to sit down. I was like, that feeling, like, you're replaying what you said in your
Yeah.
mind, and you're like, why would you say that?
I
And
would have loved some bread while I was losing weight.
and as an adult, when a child does that, like my nephews, they love money. Okay, they will not spend it on anybody.
Mm.
And so when we go places and they say, "Auntie, I'll treat you," I'm like, "Huh?" Like they won't treat their parents, but they'll treat me. And I'm like, "Okay." So I let them pay for me. And I do appreciate it, right? But then at the end of the day, I give them their money back just because, I don't want them to waste their. But the fact that they thought about it, especially since I know they don't do it for anybody else, it really means a lot. And so, I hope your mom probably really appreciated that. Even, besides the hug that she gave you, she may not have verbalized it well, but it's something that when a kid will sacrifice something for somebody else, that I think that is a big deal.
And that reminds me of another one. It's not necessarily a wake up call, but, like, I saw, like, one of, like, this is more recently. I'm a CWS teacher, and I saw, like, one of, like, my kids in CWS, like, they were kind of sitting down the stairs. They looked like really sad. So I was like, like, what's going on? And just like, my mom hates me. I'm like, no, she doesn't. Why did you say that? And she said, like, she yelled at me. I was like, well, sometimes parents yell at us when we do something bad, but that doesn't mean they hate us. So I told her, like, try going up to your mom, giving her a hug, saying you're sorry, like, just see how she'll react, and then seeing kind of like the light bulbs in her head. It's like, where it's like, you know what? Yeah. But also there was that kind of, I guess, that doubt. It was like, I don't know if you're telling the truth, but I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna try what you're telling me to do. And like, seeing her, like, hug her mom, and then like, her mom, like, hugs her back, and she, like, I couldn't hear what they were talking about, but she just pointed at me. So I could kind of guess what, like, she was saying. And, like, they were able to make up, and that's, like, that made me, like, then your, what you said about, like, seeing a child, like, have that sort of, like, realization. It's like, it's a satisfying feeling to have, and I hope I was able to help as well.
Yeah, and I think us adults, we can learn from people who are younger than us too, with their
Mhm.
wake up calls. Because when I with my nephew, he was in college and he was starting to take a lot of classes, philosophy, everything that was about rationale and not about faith. And so he was really starting to question a lot of things like, well, this is what we're learning, this is what we're doing. And not being able to help them understand, because when you talk about faith, that's something that you cannot see or touch, right? So it's something that you just believe in. And in schools, that's not what they're teaching. They have that, to see is to believe, right? That's the thing that they come out with. And so he was starting to wonder about certain things. And then one day we were all in Hawaii and he was in California by himself, and he calls and he says, "Oh my gosh, like I just got into a car accident." And we're here, we're thinking he's joking because he's a jokester. And he goes, "No, seriously, I got into a car accident." And he was telling us about it, and he even sent us pictures. And there wasn't anything we could do. We were in Hawaii. It's not like we could fly back right away. And we weren't going to be home for like another few days. But when we finally got home, um, you know, he came into my room and he said, "Auntie, I just don't know what happened." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I go, "Was it your fault? What happened?" He goes, "No." He goes, "It wasn't my fault." Because he's a good driver for a kid. He goes, "It wasn't my fault." I go, "Well, then what happened?" He goes, "The car just came out of nowhere and everything." I'm like, "Okay, well, you're okay. You're fine." And he said, "But that's not it." I'm like, "Well, what are you talking about?" He goes, "When the paramedics came and the cops came, they told him that he should not be alive. He shouldn't have been able to walk out of that accident. Like the way the car was totaled, they said it was impossible for him just to come out with just a bruise, like no scratches or anything. He just got bruised up." And he said what the cops said to him made him think, because the cops said, "I don't know what you believe in, or I don't know what you think, but whatever being is looking after you really loves you and took care of you. Because I have been through many accident sites and you should have not been walking away." And I didn't want to say nothing because I wanted to see what he was thinking, right? I go, "So what did you take of that?" He goes, "God really loves us." I'm like, "Yeah, he does." I go, "That's what I've been trying to tell you." I go, "But I'm glad you notice it now." And, and I thought that was just it. From there, that would be it. But now, because I take him on trips with me. And before, when I would take him on trips, it's like, "Oh, where are we going? What are we doing?" And that's all he would ask. But now when we go on trips, he's all like, "Are we going to worship?" I'm like, "Of course we are." Right. But he never used to ask me that. And for him to do that, I mean, that just, you're like, good. I'm glad he learned, and I'm glad he learned at a time where he could still make changes or still, be able to appreciate what he has and not take it for granted. So, yeah,
I wanted to like well up a little bit hearing that story. Yeah. It's sometimes it takes that much, right? Like something that intense to kind of jolt you to realize something important to kind of
yeah.
remind you.
And if you know him, he's not that type of person. He's a type that, "Oh yeah, sure, whatever happens happens." He's a macho type of guy where, not sensitive at all, like to the things like this. And he would never have in-depth conversations about stuff like that. So I was just really surprised.
It's
But good surprise though.
with the whatever happens happens like idea. It's just you say that because you don't know it yet. It's like, like you're watching people ride a roller coaster. It's like, where are they screaming? It's not that, it's not that high. Like it's really, but if you're the one sitting there and you see how high it is, it's like, oh, this is scary.
Yeah.
Like you're screaming as well, you're yelling as well. Right? Like that's, I feel like it's saying, like saying whatever happens happens. That comes from not knowing the whatever is. Yeah, until you're there. And just to comment on that, there's like, I feel like there was, maybe you didn't notice, like there's like gentle reminders at first, and then you have those, I would call like an extreme moment where, like he was able to walk away from that, from a situation that where it was seemingly impossible. And that that's finally what got through him, that like this is what it is. This is what fate does. So yeah, that's just thought on the when I was listening to you, that thought that came to mind for me.
Yeah, and I think, like, when somebody has a wake up call, sometimes it's not just for them. Sometimes it's for everybody else around them, for them to appreciate things and learn things. Because my other nephew idolizes him. Like, everything is about him. He thinks he's his older brother, even though they're not siblings, they're just cousins. But and then I think him seeing that also kind of like put things in perspective for my younger nephew. And so when it's not just us, but we can learn from other people's wake up calls. And that's why when people share their experiences with me, or ask for advice because of things that's going on, I think that also helps us wake up a little bit, to not take things for granted and appreciate what it is that we do have.
Because we kind of get into this, I guess we get used to things. I feel like that's the best way that I can think of it. Just like with all of the stuff that we've mentioned today, like we get used to feeling as young as we do, and then we get older, and you're like, oh, no, I don't, I can't play basketball the way I used to be able to. And then, you just think about all these things that it's, I can't think of the right word for it, but it's like, if you're not in the moment, or if you're not paying attention, I guess, or just having that attention, I think that's what it is, having that attention to these different things, and knowing that whatever it may be, like if it's a conversation about faith, or even our loved ones, like I feel like one of the most common wake up calls, especially like during the pandemic, was just seeing how fragile life can be in general, right? And then that made me want to be more intentional about how I treat my loved ones, and just all of those things, all these wake up calls, even though it may feel like a bad thing in that moment, right? Because it could make us feel a certain way, like whether it's sad, or like you're just shocked, or just whatever it may be. But it's there for a reason, to kind of get you to recalibrate and be like, oh, so this is what I'm supposed to see. Oh, this is what I'm supposed to pay attention to. Oh, this is what's calling my attention, to kind of refocus and kind of see like what is supposed to be happening, where am I supposed to be going.
And that's true too, because when a majority of my family's in Sacramento, and we had our monthly cousin get together, where the cousins would get together, leave all the kids, leave all their husbands or wives, and we would just hang out. And we're just so used to doing it that, like you said, when the pandemic hit, like we couldn't get together. We got so deep, like we had Zoom calls with each other, just because we weren't able to see each other. And then after that happened, now we do make it a point, and we make it intentional for us to hang out with each other. So
Yeah, I feel like
You brought up
go ahead, Nick.
you had brought up the pandemic, and I think it's interesting how a lot of people didn't get that wake up call from the whole event and everything that happened. Like a lot of places were locked down. A lot of people lost jobs, lost relationships. Didn't realize that like government's really fragile. A lot of people just assume they'll take care of us, but with everything else going on, with like rioting and whatnot, um, it just turned out like, okay, these things aren't really like there to help us or protect us when it really matters. So that kind of changed my mindset too. Like, what do I really have hope in? And that's where like I really started reinvesting myself, like in my own faith. Like I can't really trust on man to be able to take care of me. So of course look towards God. That's the only person or the only thing that I can have actual hope in. And like here in Texas, and even my family in Florida, which I visited, like the pandemic didn't really affect this area much at all compared to the rest of the world. And I'm just surprised, like it wasn't that bad here. And yet afterwards, like I don't take that for granted, but I see so many people did. Like it's almost like it never happened.
I didn't even know that about Texas. I didn't
yeah,
realize it.
we weren't shut down for that long. I want to say like 2 weeks. Yeah.
Florida just did 2 weeks, and that was it. Everything was open, business as usual.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very bizarre being in Florida. like going to a restaurant, going from where you had to wear masks and everything was just normal in Florida.
And here too, that's why my nephews came and spent a month with me, because California, they were shut down for so long. Here, you could go to a restaurant, you just couldn't fill it up, where that you had to space out, but the restaurants were open, and they stayed with me for a whole month so that they could go out and eat, because they were tired of eating at home in California. But yeah, Texas, I felt like we didn't feel the pandemic at all, because I was still going to work every day.
Wow. And I think that just goes to show also kind of like what we've been doing today, just the importance of sharing these different things, right? Because you never know like what you're going to learn from somebody's experience, and taking the time to actually do it, right? Because I feel like it's so easy now to, that's another thing that I hope, we don't need a wake up call for, in terms of technology. Like we're so used to having it around, but I'm just thinking like years and years ago when they didn't have it at all, not being able to do this like 20 years ago. It's tough to really think about, and I think walking out of this conversation, if there's, at least for me, I don't know for you guys, like the lesson that it kind of brings for me is, where's my attention at? Like what am I focusing on, and what are the moves that I'm kind of doing to align with that? I don't know if you guys have any final thoughts on the conversation or anything that you want to share about wake up calls, how we should think about them, how should we learn from them?
I think it just helps us to appreciate what we have and not take anything for granted. Because, like we said, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, and just appreciate what you have today, and don't stress about life too much. It's life's going to happen. Don't stress.
Yeah, and for me, it's don't take for granted reflection. Like I think we often neglect that, but go back and think about the actions that you took, the experiences you went through, because we need to be able to take that moving forward as lessons learned to help us in life.
Yeah, like what is this teaching me, right? When you have that wake up moment, you ask yourself, what was that, what when that happened, what was that supposed to teach me? And don't worry if you don't get it, because you'll have another one. There's gonna be another one until you get it. You're gonna have those wake up calls until you actually wake up and learn what you're supposed to learn from it, right? But as much as possible, try to learn it when you like. Yes.
Yeah,
hopefully it just happens once, but if
and
you don't
hopefully
get
it won't be too late.
yes.
'Cause sometimes people don't learn from their wake up calls, and then it's too late, and there's nothing they can do. So when you get, even if it's just the slightest hint, take the hint and run with it.
Yeah,
Like she said, take the hint.
that's the outcome that we don't want, right? We don't want that outcome where you reach the point of no return. It's
You
like,
get that wake up call or that realization. It's not even a wake up call anymore. It's just a realization when it's already over. You're like Arnie said, there's nothing you can do about it anymore, and now you're just left with just regret, right?
so while we have the moment now, there's always stuff that we can do. Don't wait for the. Sometimes you don't even need to wait for the alarm. You just need to be proactive about it and just get up.
Wake up 5 minutes before it.
5 minutes.
Like if you wake up 5 minutes before it, just get up. Don't wait for it.
No, those are the worst. That is like the worst feeling.
I know it's not a good feeling, but like you either do that or you risk waking up like late.
Late.
That's true. Yeah, if you're proactive, it's not pleasant, but you're better off. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like preparedness, I feel like. I really enjoyed this conversation, guys. I wish it wouldn't end, but all things, eventually have to come to some kind of end. So thank you for being with us on our talk today. And for those who are listening, please share your thoughts with us there. We do read them. We do want to know what else you want to talk about, because here in INCRadio chat line, we like to have conversations that matter. It's been really nice talking with all of you. We'll see you again, same time next week. Bye, everyone.
This is what I ask. Let me always dwell in the temple of the Lord till I bring my last.
This is INC Radio, DCEM 954.